You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live. We're looking at plenty of things that are going on right now around the world, and our main feature on Force 13 Live tonight is Typhoon Wutip, which of course reached Super Typhoon status earlier today. According to us, reached Category 5. Yes, we're saying it. We thought it got the Category 5 earlier for a very brief period. My name's Nathan Foy here in the studio. Hello, nice to see you all again, and I'm joined in this hour by elements of our team. David and Hank are with us right now. Hello, good evening, and morning in the case of David. Hello.
Hi Nathan, good to be here, and we have, as you said, the Typhoon and the US activity.
Indeed. We ought to point out what's going on tonight. We've got a really crazy, messed up situation on the Force 13 team at the minute, because we're doing two live events at once. The US team is doing live coverage of the significant severe weather event that's going on over there. They've done a fine job. They've been on the air for 1 hour already. If you want to find out more about the US severe weather situation, I'd recommend going to the Force 13 US channel. It's linked right underneath our picture on the YouTube live stream on the main channel. Hopefully things don't get too confusing. If you've got any questions about Typhoon Wutip, that's the main thing that we're here for this evening, and we're going to talk about it, and we'll also be looking at what else may be developing in the next few days, particularly in the South Pacific. I mentioned it to Hank before. I didn't quite get a response from him. Hank, what do you think of the current situation with Wutip, and then maybe what might develop later on this week?
Fortunately, Wutip is staying far enough away from Mariana Islands to where it's not a huge deal, but it is definitely something that we need to keep an eye on. The South Pacific system, I will be honest, I haven't really been paying much attention because almost just been so completely uninteresting.
Ugh.
But I've also just going through the models, I have noticed every now and then, but it's just caught my eye now that it's like actually coming on. Satellite presentation where it is located actually isn't too bad. You know, it's located within a very large and sprawling monsoon trough. It's definitely potent. I'd think that it has a definite shot of becoming something. I mean, it already has an invest designation.
This is 95p, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is that the GFS is really the only model that's taking it up to such proportions. I haven't checked the HWRF. I don't know if it actually has a run for it yet. But the Euro, for example, isn't really making it nearly as strong, but it's something that we should keep an eye on, as it may become something, definitely a rainmaker for areas of Samoa, Fiji, islands in between. Certainly.
What I was most disturbed by earlier when I saw it was the GFS, just the fact that it's going to happen so soon. The GFS saying that it could affect the area in, you know, talking about the Samoa and American Samoa in the next 48 hours. That sounds pretty significant to me.
Yeah, I mean, just take a quick look at the whole imagery. I mean, there's not really a whole lot of, how you say, rotation within, but I think the GFS is honestly being a bit bullish with the whole thing. It's to be as powerful as it says it will be as it approaches Samoa, because it's going to be because one, it's so far, and two, it's hasn't really gotten that great of a development structure quite yet. So I think that it's going to be maybe a depression once it moves over, but I don't think it's going to be the near cyclone strength system that the GFS has moving over the islands.
Let me see if I can just get the latest image of what Wutip is looking like right now. Here it is. Some recent imagery on the Himawari rapid scan, and whilst we look at this, I think we can introduce Max.
And Nathan,
Or
I've got
Isaac.
some local information.
One of them is.
Hello.
Hello. David, go ahead. We'll have a chat.
The Samoa Meteorological Office has a heavy rain advisory for the entire country. They have a small craft advisory for the entire region. Tropical disturbance 11F lies to the northwest of Samoa, predicted to approach the islands with increasing wind speed, rainfall activities. The active convergence zone, which links to the tropical disturbance, will make landfall later in the evening. Hence, potential for this system to develop into a tropical cyclone in the next 24 to 48 hours is low. The system is expected to reach Samoa by later in the evening, associating with several severe weather activities. And Nathan, I have a heavy rain and gusty winds. Strong sustained winds mainly over the interior and highlands of both larger islands, and poor visibility during showers and high swells and rough seas. So that's the local information from Samoa.
All right, we'll get on to that a little bit later on. First of all, though, I think let's just go around. That's Max in the background there. You were just setting up just then, weren't you?
Yeah.
What's everyone's opinion of Wutip then, now that we're looking at it on the screen? It's still looking pretty good, but it's coming off from its ferocious peak earlier today.
I'm just surprised how quickly and how much it intensified over these past day and a half or so. Didn't Force 13 briefly have it as a minimal Cat 5, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, we've got our new SATID system, Satellite Interpolation of IWAR Dynamics is what it stands for, and it is it found earlier today. It's early testing at this point with the operational what's going on right now. It's the second major storm that's picked up on. It did have it at Category 5 status for about maybe 2.5 hours earlier on, which, you know, if we're going to use the Matthew rule, then it counts, because Matthew had a Cat 5 for 2 hours, at least according to what we think.
Nathan, just looking at some of the information within the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, they are reporting that the typhoon rapidly intensified some 30 knots over the last 24 hours, from 105 knots to the current intensity, and animated and enhanced infrared satellite imagery depicts a compact eye wall approximately 110 nautical mile diameter with a 15 nautical mile round eye and a banding feature. So they have 30 knots intensity over a 24-hour period.
Let me just put a reminder of what the current watches and warnings are right now. You can see them on the bottom of the screen every so often. Tropical storm warning for Guam and Rota, and a tropical storm watch for pretty much the rest of the Northern Mariana Islands. I think we're now also joined by Justin.
Hello, YouTube.
Oh boy. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
What's your impression of Wutip in the last few hours?
Wow. Well, it's just really amazing. Well, not really in the last few hours, but I'm just impressed on this storm. I mean, a Cat 5 in February? When does that ever happen?
Do you think it was a Category 5? Or you just going off what our analysis was? Because of course it hasn't happened according
Just
to
going off your analysis.
According to the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, it stayed at 155 miles per hour.
Yeah.
All right. Isaac, how about you?
Hello. Well, first off, I as I was going to bed, I saw the eye starting to consolidate more and the newer frames, and I was wondering if it would actually hold up or cloud out like the earlier eye yesterday morning did. But as we all know right now, it ended up holding up and then intensifying, like the DTWC said, about 30 knots in a few hours, which is remarkable.
Yeah, the rate of intensity was pretty significant. Hank, are you there right now? I keep seeing a green orb next to your name, but no sound.
Yeah, that happens with my mic. I'm still here.
All right, good. Your thoughts? I think you're the only one we've not spoken to now.
I was just impressed in how quickly it just spiraled upwards. I mean, it had a very compact eye wall. It had a very intense CDO. It had very pretty much everything to qualify for a T7.0 under the Dvorak scale. That basically translates to a low-end Category 5. The itself actually kept it at T6.5, but the JWC put it at 135 knots. So just not quite enough on their scale for Category
Right.
5. I haven't checked what ADT says. Probably something close to 7.2.
I guess the big question. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I guess
Go
the big
ahead.
question now is what happens next, because we've seen it's degenerated a little bit, and do you think there's going to be a big collapse coming up soon, or like the HWRF, you think it'll hold on with a lot of that intensity for quite a while yet?
I think it's going to hold it for about another 24 hours, but then it's going to fall off a very, very steep cliff because it's going to be encountering what we call the East Asian jet that's usually in the position of the Northern Pacific throughout the course of the winter months. And because it is February, it is still the winter, so we have very, very strong easterly winds all across the... if I could pull up my screen share, I can kind of display here. This is, let's scroll up to the West Pacific here. Right here, this is what I'm talking about right here. So this is, if the frame would actually cooperate,
We've got it.
that'd be great. Yeah, I'm just trying to get the right frame here. Okay, 1 second. All right, there we go. So this is the whole situation right now. You can see, I don't care about downloading. This is, where Wutip is right now. And this up here is where the jet is at its strongest. You can see winds just kind of pushing across the Northern Pacific here, just howling from east to west. And that's very usual for this time of year. I mean, you can even see in Wutip's outflow, all this energy up here is getting pushed off towards the northeast. And as the storm begins to gradually progress up here, the storm is going to get into this area where shear is going to skyrocket. So the storm, while it's going to be located up here, it's going to have all its convective.
We've lost Hank. Where's he gone?
I don't know.
Okay, well, that went pretty well. Whilst we're looking at this is what the US stream is looking like right now. If you're interested in what's going on over there, they're also live streaming on the Force 13 US channel. This is live. That's what their output is right now. So it's a fascinating day we've got in store. We're watching all kinds of things going on, as well as Typhoon Wutip, which looks like this. You can just about make out Guam on the top right hand side of the screen there. It looks to me as though it's pretty much out of the woods. There is a little bit of rain still falling there at the moment, but it's pretty much in the clear. And this could have been so much worse for those islands as well, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and right now I'd say the lack of a western eye wall pretty much is what keeps me from putting it at a higher intensity than it is.
Guam recorded sustained winds of about 40 miles an hour with a peak gust of 53 miles an hour. Last I checked from the outer bands of Typhoon Wutip, way less than what it could have been. Originally, National Weather Service in Guam was forecasting wind gusts to reach 75 miles an hour with sustained winds of about 50 to 55 miles per hour. But thankfully that did not happen, and they got the lesser side of the storm's wrath.
It could have been a lot closer to Guam. Plus, a lot of the earlier models had saying like like a landfall in Guam or something. I guess that was
yeah, that
later
was some
on.
of the early model runs. Indeed, it's gone. Well, Hank, we've got you back there. What happened?
I hate Discord oh so much. That's what happens. It just
Me too.
it just
It also
completely
timed me out.
cut me off right in the middle of my
Jeez.
explanation.
Me
I didn't realize
too.
that for some time.
Well, just to add to your explanation, Hank, could you explain how Guam came into play here? Because the models were initially calling for Guam to maybe even get a landfall or very close to the island, and how it transpired that the storm went further west.
So the bridge to the east of the system was eventually pushed a bit farther towards the west, and as a result, the storm was forced further towards the west because the bridge positioning was different. Didn't really get any stronger or deeper, but it just was positioned at a different spot.
Okay, David, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
I believe you're also simulcasting on Facebook tonight as well.
Yes, we are on Facebook.
So we're
and,
reaching everyone. We've got 3 streams live right now. We're simulcasting on
Ow.
YouTube and Facebook, and we've got the US stream running by our second team, who are on the scene over there as well. It's a very fascinating evening, and can't wait for hurricane season when we can really put our extra resources that we seem to have now to the test. If you've got any questions for us whilst we're on the air tonight, start your message with Force 13. Someone has just put in. Is that you, Max?
Yes.
Good timing. He's just put it in the comments section there as well. That's the way to do it. Start your message with Force 13. It lights up, and I'll be able to see the questions come in with my very dim eyes that can't make out the text when it's in plain. I don't know if anyone wants to comment anything else at this point.
Like I was saying earlier, I have noticed the western eye wall is starting to lose its structure in those latest frames.
Western Iowa's been probably the worst part of the storm throughout its entire life, so that's not very surprising.
And that's really what's keeping me from
last
having it at
shorter.
a, that's what's keeping me from having it at a higher intensity than I would otherwise.
So again, we're looking at the imagery that Isaac has sent to us for the time being, showing the radar there, and looking at Saipan as well. Whilst we look at that, it looks like it's again a little bit of rainfall there at the minute in that blind spot of the radar.
Yeah, they're getting a little bit of rain. Most of it's been towards Guam. Guam's been under a flash flood warning for the past 2 hours because of the heavy rain that's been hitting the island recently. Rota has also been getting some of the heavy rain, but not as much as Guam has been getting recently. And Saipan has been getting some of the rain as well too. And you can see on the satellite here, like we've been saying, the western part of the eye wall is not really doing the best right now. And it's still trying, but definitely not as strong as it was earlier this morning when it set it to RI into a powerful typhoon. And I believe this is also the strongest typhoon since at least 1950, that is, in terms of wind speed and pressure, currently in the Western Pacific in the month of February. So quite a remarkable thing for Wutip to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead. If you look at the track here, you can see they forecast it to pretty much go on to a northwesterly track and then take it to north track and then probably get destroyed by the winds here and move on to the west here really rapidly and die off.
But you know, we've seen quite a few storms in the past at this time of year, or early on or late on in the year, and they've completely capitulated. And find it curious that JWC is only calling for gradual weakening.
Yeah,
so
Cat
5.
Is that just because they're not sure exactly when it's going to drop off the cliff?
What again?
Is it just because the JT
gonna get destroyed once it goes over there in the jet stream?
Yeah, my question was: is it you know, just that the JTWC is it doesn't know when it's going to fall off the cliff, so just it'll have done it by day 5. It could happen any time between now and then.
Well, this one's been pretty
it's essentially
hit or miss.
once
I mean,
the
if
storm
you
starts to curve.
if we saw earlier, sorry Hank, if we saw earlier, it wasn't really doing the best before it did this RI phase. It wasn't looking the best, I should say, and I'm assuming they're forecasting 140 because I believe they get satellite data and information a few hours or an hour or two later than everybody else does. I believe, if not mistaken, Nathan. Is that true, or am I incorrect in saying?
Sorry, what was that? I was just reading some comments.
On if the JTWC gets information about an hour or two later than everybody else.
Oh well, the JTWC put out their advisories based on the position from 3 hours earlier, which I've still never understood.
So yeah, they may have saw it at like 10:30 UTC or 11:30 UTC and thought it would still maintain its strength or maybe even increase.
At 12, obviously, Force 13 put out its 1 PM UTC update and went with 155, just about reaching the. We just had one SATID report of 157, but that wasn't enough to substantiate Cat 5 for another 2 hours. So you know, they also went with 155 based on that, and I'm guessing they're doing their next advisory now. What's the ATCF say? I've not actually had time to see this. Is it still at 155?
ATCF still says the same intensity.
Yeah, so they're never going to call it a Category 5 then, are they?
135, 924.
Yeah, they're never going to call it a Category 5 in that case.
Yeah.
And they say it's going to tracking the coolest sea surface temperature water.
Of course.
Higher wind shear, it's going to really die.
Yeah, higher wind shear is forecast to absolutely just destroy the system, like it did with the previous strongest February storm, Higos, in 2015. If you remember, if any of you guys remember tracking in 2015, that thing rapidly intensified.
Raise his hand.
That thing rapidly intensified like as soon as it got into, well, I don't know. It rapidly intensified fast, but just as fast as it rapidly intensified, this year went over and got it and killed it in about the same time frame,
right.
if I'm not mistaken.
Guys, I'm going to take a break for the time being. I'm going to cross over now to Force 13 US's coverage. We're going to be back on here to talk more about Typhoon Wutip just after 1/2 So that's just 10 minutes time. And because we have some severe thunderstorm warnings by the looks of things now, so we're going to tune into the US channel for a few moments here. Whilst we regather our thoughts, you might want to take a look at some model runs in the next half hour if anyone wants to do that on our stream.
Yeah, I got them up right now. I guess I'll do that real quick.
We'll bring it over to the... We'll be doing that after 1/2, Hank.
Oh, okay.
We're going to cross over to the US live coverage now of what's going on over there with the severe weather.
This is Madison and Yazoo.
Yeah, with that more substantiated.
The one that I'm currently looking at here.
Yeah, so currently a radar indicated tornado moving at around 53 miles per hour according to my storm motion vector calculator, and it's at about 1 inch in hail diameter possible.
Okay, so the National Weather Service in Jackson has issued a tornado warning for eastern Yazoo County and central Madison County until 3 o'clock. At 2:22, a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located near Flora, or 17 miles south of Yazoo City, moving northeast at 55 miles per hour. This dangerous storm will be near Little Yazoo around 2:30, Myrtleville around 2:35, Benton around 2:40, Way around 2:45, Vaughn around 2:50, and Cameron around 3 o'clock. Also, Bentonia is in this as well.
Yeah, so definitely something to keep a close eye on. With that possible tornado, I would like to point out that this is in the enhanced risk right now. And according to the National Weather Service's warning polygon, by the time this warning would expire, it will be right on the border between the enhanced and moderate risk. Those are the areas, that is the borderline between favorable conditions for tornadoes and favorable conditions for dangerous tornadoes. So this tornado is on really the verge of heading into an area where very dangerous conditions are going to be favorable. for that storm. So this could become a dangerous and violent tornado. It's not right now. I repeat, this is not a violent tornado right now, but it could become one.
We don't even know if there is one right now. This is just radar indicated.
Yeah, this is radar indicated
one. We don't know if there is one right now.
Now, I do want to point out, if you are in Bentonia or Goodman, I would recommend that you get into the lowest level of your house, the most interior room, and activate your tornado precaution plan at this time.
Yes. Bentonia is going to be hit very soon. Bentonia, Flora, other locations.
Yeah, Bentonia.
Thomas,
if you are
like
inside,
the hunters chasing is around that tornado warning area. So I'm going to see if I can.
If you are under this tornado warning, you need to get to the lowest level of your home or business and put as many walls between you and the outside as possible.
And just to point out, a National Weather Service in Nashville media reports flash flood at 10:36 a.m. Central Standard Time.
This is a few hours ago.
Yeah.
It says here residents
responded with pump tracks to alleviate some flooding. Residents have been asked to stay off the roads. So,
and this is near Murfree. This is near Murfreesboro.
Yeah.
So if you're in that area, be aware. There's also something coming out of Lynn Grove, Kentucky. Train spotter reports flash flood at 2:19. Water over Browns Grove Road in a location that does not typically flood. Report relayed via Twitter.
Okay.
So,
when does that tornado warning expire?
That's going to expire at
3 o'clock.
3 Central.
3 o'clock.
Oh, we already have tornado warnings.
So it'd be in. Trying to think here. 35
So,
minutes.
Thomas, I'm not sure if this is for this is not for television broadcast, but I am currently viewing the Base Hunters Chasing live stream, and I'm pretty sure they're in central Mississippi. They're about to go into the part that is seeing heavy rainfall, so they could be tracking this tornado right now as we speak. They are currently in Canton, Mississippi, just north of Jackson. So, yeah, we do have some storm chasers that are on this system. So, if we do get reports of them seeing a tornado, then that will make this tornado confirmed and not just radar indicated.
Yeah, most definitely something to.
We have a okay. Something coming out of Jackson. Continued severe thunderstorm warning in Ashley, Chickett, East Carroll, Morehouse, and West Carroll.
Let's see here what this says.
Louisiana.
This is live coverage from Force 13 US.
So 3-2.
That was Force 13 US's live coverage on the current situation in the, obviously in the central states there, a severe weather outbreak which is currently occurring. You can catch up with that live on the Force 13 US channel. We'll be covering more on Typhoon Wutip shortly after this.
Hey, it's Jack, giving just a new update on the Patreon page. We're rewarding loyalty and contributions in a new way now that we've been thinking about for some time. Now when you contribute at least $50 through your total lifetime, regardless of tier, you get your own individual storm animation made by our team. This is regardless of tier once again, so even if you donate $1 per month, after 50 months you'll get your own individual storm animation. But we do have all these other tiers and tons of other benefits to go along. If you want to get your own individual storm animation or help contribute to the project personally, Feel free to use the link in the description or type in your browser www.patreon.com/Force13.
Along with the main Force 13 channel for our world audience, we have regional channels, Force 13 AU and Oceania, Force 13 UK and Ireland, and Force 13 US and Caribbean. These channels all need your support and involvement, so if you're in those areas, please check them out. Alright, we're back somewhere. Here we are. Welcome back, this is Force 13 Live, and as you've been seeing, we're covering all kinds of things. Back to Wutip, which is what we're looking at right now. This is the latest satellite imagery that you can see on the screen. Let's bring back our team, and I think we're going to go straight to Hank with some models.
Alright, so let's see, my screen share is functioning. Okay, good. Okay, so yeah, Wutip is the main topic of what we're going to cover with the models, but let's just start out here. This is the GFS model, the American model for the storm, and just going to explain it. So this is, let me actually change it to wind speed. So this is the wind speed graphic here, so you can see the key right here on the right of the graphic, and then the hours past that, and as add for no reason. So the model is showing that the storm moving towards northwest makes sense, and then really falling off a cliff here once we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, and then it starts to progress west. And this is because of the wind shear. This is what I was trying to explain before Discord decided to cut me off.
Yeah.
So
rude of it.
So this is the wind shear. So you can see up here. Actually, let me just switch to 200 millibar wind. So you can see this is what we call the East Asian jet right here, and this is pretty much a semi-permanent feature over the winter months. And it's still February, it's still winter, despite the fact that we have a super typhoon. It's still the winter time. So we have this jet right here, and as Wutip continues to move towards the north under the influence of this ridge out here towards the east of the Mariana Islands, the storm's going to continue to progress north, but then it gets a little too close to the jet and starts to get sheared significantly. And all the convection associated with the storm is going to be blown off towards the east-northeast, and because of that, the storm is going to weaken significantly, and the storm will also begin to stop moving farther north because the storm's influence is not going to be extending as far up into the troposphere. Because you can see here, if I reverse a little bit, you can see that the storm has around it, you might not be able to see it very clearly, but it has some sort of cyclonic flow around it in the upper levels. This wind speed is up in 200 millibars. It's in the upper parts of the troposphere. But as you can see, as it gets closer, you can see that little vortex around it is not nearly as well defined. So as a result, the storm is going to be forced under the influence of surface flow, which is the trade winds that move from east to west. So it's going to move slowly towards the east as a very weak system towards the Philippines, but the model shows it being really not much of anything by the time it actually gets to Luzon, and that wouldn't be for another week. That'd be into March, so I wouldn't really worry about that too much right now. That's pretty much the consensus with the models. The European shows a similar thing. Pretty strong system for the next 40 hours. Then falls off a huge cliff. As you can see here, the storm doesn't even make it to the Philippines. It just curves north towards some of the Japanese islands. The HWRF is... Actually, let me just... This is the HMON ship. At this point, yes. So, okay, let's change to wind speed. So the HWRF, which has been the most bullish model, I'd say, in terms of intensity, is keeping it at a Cat 4 for the next, say, that's the next 48 hours, but then after that, it begins to really fall off a really steep cliff, and then by, Wednesday, it's a depression, and then by Thursday, it's essentially nothing at all as it progresses slowly towards the west. You can see it's a very, very weak system as compared to what it is, say, now. This is what it is in 5 days. It's essentially it's a ghost of its former self.
Well, storms at this time of year don't tend to live very long lives in the northern hemisphere, do they?
No, they don't. And I mean, you could see that pretty clearly. Like the JWC forecast even shows this. This was shown earlier, but you can see the storm moving northwest, north, and then because it hits that shear, it starts to fall off a more gradual cliff than what they're showing, I think. And then we'll begin to make that westward progress because of that limited influence in the upper troposphere. And you can see that even with the ensembles, some of them try to curve it towards northeast, but then they all eventually curve towards the west as the storm becomes significantly weaker.
It's something that's been creeping into those models in the last few days. They're almost all of them were initially saying recurve, and now they've all shifted to the shear option of dying, and they're moving west.
Yeah, that was because the ridge was initially placed closer towards the east. Now, because it's farther towards the west, the storm has been able to move farther west, and that has meant that the storm is closer towards a little bit of a dip in the jet. And it's hard to kind of see, but you can actually kind of see a little bit here. But you can see how it kind of angles a little bit downwards and kind of bulges up with the ridge. So as a result, the storm is closer towards this, so it gets sheared more. And because it gets sheared more, it further towards the south, it just moves west with the trades because the flow isn't nearly as deep layered as it is, say, up here. So the storm isn't able to like curve out like this or anything like that.
A lot of people are just having a conversation in the chat section about whether El Nino may affect things this season or whether it had any part to play in this. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I mean, sea surface temperatures in the area are, I think they're not. I honestly don't know, but they think they're anomalously warm. I guess I'll just take a quick look.
May as well have a look.
Actually, no, they're actually below average. Let's pull this up real quick. Yeah, they're actually below average in this area. But then again, I usually tend not to use the tropical tidbits sea surface temperature anomaly because it uses the CDAS method, and that's a satellite-based method. It's not actually based off of observations. So this is maybe somewhat inaccurate, but in general, it's showing that this portion of the basin is cool, while in the northern Pacific, it's a lot warmer than normal.
We're talking there maybe 1 degree cooler, and when it's usually 29, 30 degrees anyway, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it's still easily warm enough, but I don't know, it's just not as warm as it usually should be for this time of year. As for the El Nino right now, you can see it down here in this little graph. Let me zoom into that. This is also based off the method, so not the most accurate thing in the world, but you can see anomalies have been above normal in the 3.4 region.
Is this what NOAA have been basing it off, though? Have they been looking at something else to call that new weak El Nino that they're saying it is?
Yeah, this is mostly what they're basing it off of, just the current sea surface temperatures. I'll be honest, I haven't really looked into this that much because it just hasn't really caught my eye, but I will go into this more in a few days. Just to make
probably.
Sure. And
I mean, people are going to be getting, either psyched up or deflated when they hear, oh, it's an El Nino, will it last the whole year? It usually means a dead Atlantic and an extremely active Pacific.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we thought that last year, and the Atlantic was semi-dead, what on earth is going on here? So
yeah, I think that was basically because El Nino didn't develop until much later than everyone expected, if I'm not mistaken.
El Nino last year really wasn't all that strong. It was just that the tropical Atlantic, the sea surface temperatures were a lot cooler, and up in the north, it was a lot warmer. So the tripole was completely swapped, so that meant that there was suppression down in the tropics.
All those subtropical storms, or storms that formed in a subtropical region, at least half,
so many subtropical storms there?
Yeah, the northern Atlantic was ripe for development last year, and because you don't have pure barotropic activity going on up in the North Atlantic like you shouldn't, there's a lot more storms that forming from non-tropical origins. And normally when you have storms from non-tropical origins, they start with some sort of a subtropical background, and lo and behold, we got 7 of those last year, 6 of which actually in the Northern Atlantic. So, and one of them just formed in the Caribbean because it was in May and whatever.
Yeah. Looking at the screen right now, that's what's left of Cyclone Omar, which survived for about, well, if we're counting its precursor, 96p, about 24 days. Invest 95p is currently located there. It's got a bit of spin to it now. That's what we discussed early on in the hour. Could we show some models on that?
On which storm?
On the Pacific, South Pacific potential?
Yeah, sure. So this is the GFS model right here. Let me just get the right parameter. This model is being a bit more bullish with this system.
As
for
usual.
reference, the storm is up here. This is where it's left of the atrocity known as Oma, and
Yeah.
you could see, and 36 hours has already pushed the storm towards cyclone status. I don't really think that's going to be the case. It's probably going to be bordering on depression, maybe weak tropical storm by the time it moves over Samoa. And then after that, it really takes the storm off. But again, I feel like that's a bit bullish considering what some of the other models are saying.
Yeah, let's have a
including
look.
the ECMWF, which doesn't even have the system as anything as it moves over Samoa. In fact, that's not even the main system. The main system is back here. And you can see that this other lobe that moves over Samoa does eventually become dominant, but because of this little dominancy battle, it doesn't actually get the chance to really become full-blown. That might be a depression right there, and there, but it probably doesn't become anything too significant. Maybe a Category 1 on the Australian scale, but that would be about it for this, and then eventually just gets pushed off towards the east.
Although,
big ridge builds.
The big mess that contributed to Neil and all those other little systems, that really did a number on Tonga in terms of rainfall, and this storm is probably going to deliver some more.
Yeah, rainfall is going to be the big issue with these storms, as it usually is with the South Pacific storms. Total accumulated rainfall, this is coming from the GFS model, let's see, up to about 250 centimeters, maybe 300, 350 over Samoa, and then down towards Tonga as well.
Millimeters.
Millimeters, yes. If we were talking centimeters or meters, we'd be talking about the end of the world as we know it. So we're not worried about it. So this is millimeters. This is about on the range of about, oh gosh, about a foot of rainfall. So that's still a lot. That's still a lot of rain that's coming down over these regions, and isolated areas could see even more, potentially up to 400 millimeter, or I'll just use centimeters, about 40 centimeters, maybe 45 centimeters of rainfall over these areas, and at the end of the run, just ignore that. So yeah, a lot of rainfall coming from this system, as you usually would expect with these South Pacific systems.
We've also been hearing rumblings about potential Southwest Indian Ocean development next week.
Oh, let me check that really quick.
Now, I've not even seen it myself, so I'll be discovering it as you are here.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything regarding it either, but let's just take a look. So let's just go. Little system northeast of Madagascar, but that's not anything special. Does become something special though.
Oh God.
But that's also in the March. That's next weekend. So that's Sunday, March 3rd, and the March 4th, making landfall in Mozambique. That's a bit far out in the model run for me to take with any seriousness. And then another system up here, northeast of Madagascar, doesn't end up forming, but something towards the southeast does. But again, that's kind of far into the model, so we'll see. I mean, the Indian Ocean's been relatively active, slightly above normal so far this year, so I can't rule out some more storms forming in the region, but if anything, it's going to be not within the next 5 days, I would say.
Yeah, no, sure.
Just
before that, David, I just want to remind everyone that Force 13 US is currently live right now as well as we speak. As you can see, they're circling an area that's looking pretty nasty near Tuscaloosa right now, so there's quite a few things going on there along that line of weather that's moving through the US states at the moment. We're probably going to finish up at the end of this hour. The US stream is probably going to continue. They started an hour before us. They're probably going to finish an hour afterwards as well. But we thought we'd go on the air to give everything a bit of airtime, including that situation over there. David, go.
There was a question from somebody, I think, down there in the Mauritius region, wanting to know what Isabella happening near Mauritius. I think that might be the next name of the
no.
system, or is that something else?
It'd be the H name. I don't even know what it is. I think Halea or something like that.
Yeah. Who knows what the pronunciation is on that one.
But yeah, we just went through the models, and nothing seems to be an imminent threat to Mauritius within the next week. So, I mean, I wouldn't be too worried about anything within, nothing within the next week.
So that basin is all clear, and everything else, I imagine, is also clear.
Apart from those islands in the South Pacific we discussed earlier, and maybe New Caledonia with Oma. I don't even know if that's still valid anymore, but yeah, I don't think it is. Then, or maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Apart from that, those islands in South Pacific we mentioned, and maybe Guam, which is being cleared right now by Wutip. Really,
yeah, of course.
No other areas are likely to see any
but
sort of
it
impact.
would make me laugh if Omar came back from the dead again.
It's tracking north.
Oh dear,
Yeah, it's
oh dear.
tracking north now.
And the Bureau of Meteorology says that they gave them very low to low, I think it's Tuesday.
Well, when the Bureau of Meteorology finished up with the storm yesterday, wasn't it? They said that it had become a subtropical storm. Hank, do you agree with that?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just too uninterested to even take a look at it yesterday, so I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Well, bringing this information,
I don't
the New
think it
Zealand
was.
Meteorological Service was they're monitoring it too. They have it as a tropical low, but it's tracking back up into the Cold Sea. And unfortunately, its life isn't over yet because Cairns could get in excess of 400 millimeters.
Was that Max trying to speak as well there?
Yeah, knowing Oma, it probably will come back and then do a Katrina Victor Cindy or something.
Oh no. God damn it. Oh, back to the latest imagery of Typhoon Wutip. Latest imagery there. It's actually looking pretty good. Some more convection wrapping around the eye, and it's, well, what do you guys think of that?
It's going to fluctuate, I think, with it like this. I mean...
Well, what my main question, really, is there going to be another chance for it to reach that Cat 5 status?
I doubt it at this rate. I mean, it's definitely peaked off. It's undergoing some eyewall structural changes. I think actually...
Well, I'm not sure looking at this latest imagery, Hank.
Oh no, in the latest frames, the eyewall does seem to be blowing up a bit again.
I think actually if we look at it closely there might be a little fracture in that southwestern eye wall, the bit that hasn't been blown up by the convection, so it might have some trouble getting that together.
Yeah, I was just looking at some Guam radar yesterday. I think, yeah, actually I can pull this up.
I have Guam radar up right here.
Yeah, so my screen share I think has it right now. If that can be.
Yeah.
Okay, so if y'all see my screen share, that'd be great to know. Okay, so this is radar out of Guam right here. The quality isn't as good because I had to extend it out further. But here, this right here is the eye wall, the inner eye wall of Wutip right here. And you could, right here, inner eye wall, we can see that there's some other little bands out here that are trying to close off right here. It's not, you can't really see because it's on the very edge of the radar. But even on microwave imagery, it's kind of starting to kind of close off more right here. So as this eye wall, the inner eye wall right here, I mean, I show it not being a perfect circle, but it's much more circular than my drawing is. And once this kind of closes off right here, you have pretty much concentric eye walls, and this radar imagery hasn't changed that much over the past 3 hours. If I can loop it a little bit here, you kind of see that these bands right here are kind of not really changing that much. So this one in particular right here I think is closing off. So we'll see exactly how this evolves as this whole thing begins to progress. Off towards the northwest. And right now, I guess just for some perspective, the actual center of the storm is about 175 miles away from Guam. So I wouldn't worry at all about a direct hit from the storm as moving in this general direction.
I think earlier it was about 150 miles, so it's drawing away.
Yeah.
Yeah. The worst effects were earlier this morning, and it should be going out from here. The rain should be lessening now.
Isaac, are we looking
Well,
at
not
anything
now.
in particular on your screen here?
Trying to pull up microwave, but it's being kind of a pain right now, so I guess we'll just go back to radar here. But
Another look at that radar, yep.
you can see on the satellite imagery here that a burst of convection trying to fire up to the north to cover that western quadrant, looks like at the end there, to,
There it is.
I guess, help itself out there a little bit. But,
Although I guess when you look at the start of that loop, it's still, the last frame isn't as good as the first one in my opinion. Just to reiterate, some people may have got slightly confused. We're giving it 150 miles an hour right now on Force 13's analysis. Earlier today, our new satellite estimating technique, which started producing its test results during Cyclone Galena, we're slowly starting to get a little bit more public with it as we get more confident in using the new technique. But it's shown so far this storm reached a peak wind speed of 161 and was a Cat 5 for about 2 or 3 hours. And I think, does everyone in here agree with that, or is there someone who doesn't think it quite got the Category 5 earlier?
That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with Cat 5.
Alright, sounds pretty unanimous then. So that's what we're putting it down as in our operational analysis, and I don't think that's going to change. And I just wonder, you know, it's the West Pacific, anything can happen. Is there going to be a second attempt? But we'll see. Tropical storm warning still in effect for Guam and Rota. Tropical storm watch is still in effect for Tinian, Saipan, and the rest of the Northern Marianas.
I pulled up some microwave imagery here. This one's from 18Z, roughly around there, 18Z, and you can see the concentric eye walls looks like trying to form here. So it's likely undergoing an EWRC perhaps right now. Do you have any thoughts about this, Hank?
I mean, yeah, that just kind of reflects what I saw on the radar imagery.
Clearly two separate eye walls there.
Yeah.
Yeah, inner and the outer. And you can see the satellite imagery how it's trying to fire up some new convection right here. Otherwise, not really doing too much right now. Don't really have anything else to say on Wutip, unless you guys have something more to say.
Do any of you think this microwave imagery could be giving a bit of foresight to the potential onset of an eyewall replacement cycle?
I mean, that's pretty much his right here, an eyewall cycle. You can see the concentric eyewalls here on microwave and also on radar, on Guam radar, barely right there. It's really hard to tell, but it's there, concentric eyewalls. Mm-hmm. So definitely, at least trying to undergo it.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, if it does undergo it, then it's probably going to run out of time before it starts to get completely annihilated by everything else. So I think it's probably peaked out by this rate. And
not to mention, it's going to head into. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Oh, and not to mention, it's going to be heading into cooler sea surface temperatures anyway as well too. So, that'll, even if the SEER doesn't get it in time, it's still going to have those lower sea surface temperatures to deal with as well. So, I do believe that it's probably peaked out now. It might try to do a secondary peak, but probably won't be a Cat 5 again. But you know, like Nathan said, it's the West Pac, so I mean, who knows?
Yep, we're finishing up shortly. Just want to reiterate, the Force 13 US channel is streaming live right now. There's a link in the description of our video. Looks like they're going to be still going after we've finished here. So if you want to keep up to date on what's going on over there, this is their output right now. And it looks like a severe thunderstorm warning in effect very close to Yazoo City with a possible tornado possible there. I don't think it's a tornado warning because I've not seen any yet, but I think one of those may be coming soon. We'll see what happens with that. The US team will have that covered much better than my faraway position has it here looking at the stream. But that's also going on this very busy day in February.
of all months. Yeah.
Another look at the satellite imagery. We've got about just a few minutes, so any thoughts from anyone else here, or forever hold your peace?
I would just like to say for anybody who lives in the United States right now, to monitor anybody who's in a tornado watch. Rather, I should rephrase that. Anybody in a tornado watch or is at risk of severe weather today, and in the United States, should be watching their local National Weather Service office very carefully over the next coming hours here, as some severe thunderstorms are going to head towards the area. But other than that, I don't really have any more to say. Just anybody in a tornado watch or in the risk of severe weather to watch closely what will go on in your area.
Well, it's a pleasure to actually be on a Force 13 live stream for the first time.
Not a problem. Where are you located again? New York?
To do more in the future.
Sorry?
Excited to do more in the future.
Yes. You're located in New York, right?
Yeah, I'm in the Finger Lakes region.
Okay. So, I'm sure you'll be around whenever something comes up. I don't think you'll be getting anything from this current system, will you? In the US?
Oh. Well, I think I may get some slight winds when it comes up to near the northeast, but I don't know. I'm probably not sure.
Yeah, this tonight is basically the place where the people not being affected by the US severe weather have congregated. And obviously looking at the severe situation with the typhoon. Although, we'd stay on longer, but there's not really a huge amount to talk about. But we thought we'd just run a live event just to air our thoughts on it, really. I expect the watches and warnings in Guam will be lifted sooner or later today. And from Isaac, could you relay again what the highest wind speeds recorded were there?
So far, when I checked earlier this morning, the highest wind gust recorded on Anderson Air Force Base was a 53-mile-an-hour wind gust, and the highest sustained wind was about 40 miles an hour in the early morning hours, Guam time.
And I think that's actually a little better than what we thought they'd end up with. We're thinking maybe, I was certainly thinking in the 50s that they'd probably get there, but it doesn't look like that's happened because it did continue to move further west.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier in the stream, they were originally forecasting for southern Guam to get up to 75-mile-an-hour wind gusts with sustained winds of about 50 to 55 miles an hour. But as we know now, thankfully, that did not happen. Although they did get tropical storm force winds, they could have been way worse.
Well, that's it from us tonight. Thanks ever so much, team. My team, because there's two teams active tonight on Force 13. Thanks very much for joining us, and same to the viewers, everyone who's been watching us tonight. Hopefully we've delivered enough information for you to go by on Typhoon Wutip, as well as everything else that's going on. Of course, we will be sticking around on the channel with more video updates coming up on the storm if necessary, and on anything else out there. In the meantime, we're going to get going. The US stream will continue with the potential tornado outbreak, which I don't think has quite come to fruition yet, but we are pretty concerned about that at this time. But from here at Force 13 HQ and my team, it's a good night for me. We'll see you again soon.
And thank you.
Thank you.